notwithstanding mediocrity in our profession. LinkedIn is an interesting place. Social media in general is an interesting place. And what we're talking about today is how LinkedIn and some of the influencers on LinkedIn may be steering you in a different path than maybe what you should be going down, and what you should be doing in terms of using your social media to sort of influence how you're going to be going about your not only clinical practice but your business practice as well. And you don't have to own a business for it to be applicable to you. Just how you go about your business as a physical therapist, occupational therapist, nurse, doesn't matter who you are, part of the medical profession. But LinkedIn has this sort of subculture, and all forms of social media do, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. They all have their own little subculture, and the good and bad and the ugly of all of it is, not the discussion here. But one of LinkedIn's ideas, and if you're not familiar with LinkedIn, it's sort of this business social media site where you kind of have an online CV or resume and you're connecting with other professionals. It's usually more white collar, medical, business, finance, those type of professionals. You're all connecting, but there is a feed and an influencer log, just sort of similar to a Facebook wall or Instagram stories. You'll see these things on LinkedIn. And a lot of influencers on LinkedIn have sort of come together and formed this little bit of a culture that I don't think is always good. And to break it down very simply, LinkedIn essentially says, if you're going to listen to the influencers, LinkedIn essentially says that hiring managers are idiots, companies are generally bad, and companies should be working completely and altruistically at the behest and benefit of the employees without ever holding the employees accountable. There's no reason to ever hold employees accountable. The businesses should just be doing all this stuff for them and just being altruistically good. And it's not a realistic expectation of business, and a lot of new grads see this, new people coming out of high school or college, they try to go in the business world, they're looking at LinkedIn and thinking that this is how it should be, when in reality, businesses are there to be profitable, first and foremost. A business will always take care of itself, which is why I tell students that I work with and students that I see, always put yourself first. Don't ever put the business first. Put yourself first, and in general, put yourself first in life. Make yourself as good as possible. Then you can take care of others and do as good a job in the business as possible. Do as good a job in any part of your life as long as you take care of yourself first. Businesses in general don't care about the employees, and they're not supposed to. It's not their job. When they do things for the employees' benefit, they do it for one of two reasons. One of them is they have to, labor laws. Or number two, they feel that treating the employee well is actually good for their bottom line. Less turnover, less calling in sick, better performance, happier employees means a better product for your customers at the end, meaning more profit. So when a business does things for the employee's benefit, they're doing it really for their benefit, just it happens to align with the employee's benefit and they're going in the same direction. So that's what we're going to talk about today in the podcast, the whole LinkedIn thing. This is the Dr. Kroll PT and Fitness Podcast. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that share. You know what to do. I'm going to put this on LinkedIn as well, even though I'm kind of going to be going after a lot of the LinkedIn type influencer environment here. But again, hit that. Like, subscribe, share, post it, share it with your friends, leave a comment. All that stuff is very helpful to the channel. So without further ado, let's talk about what made me do this podcast in the first place, this episode today. I saw a post, and I don't care about who posted it. I have no problem with the person who posted it. It's fine. The post has since been deleted, so I couldn't bring it up again. But the idea was, this person found the median income for physical therapists is $91,000. Now, that's not the average. This is the median income for physical therapists in the United States is $91,000, and we should stop settling for $60,000 when we should be going to get $90,000. Now, I kind of looked at this and immediately I said, well, that's a pretty poor use of statistics. I mean, you took everybody into one pot, just wiped away all subspecialties and all, travel and environmental, geographical issues where certain people are going to be paid more just for geographically where they are, whether it's an undesirable place or difficult place to get people to work. I mean, I've seen job offers in Fairbanks, Alaska for way more than what you would get in Western New York or in, Southern Florida. You're just not going to get these types of, payout in those places because Fairbanks is a difficult place to get people to come and a difficult place to get people to stay. So Fairbanks is going to pay a lot more than Buffalo, New York, or than, Fort Myers, Florida. It doesn't matter in other locations. I saw a place that was 15 minutes away from the border in New Mexico, from the U.S.-Mexico border in New Mexico, and they were paying well over 6 figures for an outpatient PT clinic. And again, why? Because it's not generally a desirable place for people to work. People don't want to work that close to the border. They don't feel it's safe. So that's why you're paid a lot more there. But all those numbers are added in to this statistical poll that this guy grabbed and said, hey, the median is 91,000. That's what we should be making. Stop settling for 60 grand. And this is where I had the problem with it. Not just bad statistics, but stop settling for 60 grand when we should be fighting for 90. And one of the things I've always said in this podcast is a couple of overarching themes was, stop devaluing our profession. If we devalue our profession, we can't make that type of money. But another one I've said often is no group, no individual has ever been given more respect than they've given themselves. So if we want to make 91 grand, and I saw people in the comments section, the same as most of their LinkedIn influencers, like, yeah, this is great. We should be making 91 grand. We're one of the only doctoring professions not making six figures. We should be making more than what we're making. That's fine. I don't have a problem with people having that opinion, but now what action are you going to take? Because one thing that very seldom works for any group, any individual, is just yelling and screaming and saying we should be given more because we want more, we deserve more. That doesn't fly, because if you're accepting this level, if you're already accepting 60 grand, then you have to convince everybody else, why do you need 90? Why do you need 100? You're doing this work for 60. Why should we pay you 40 grand a year more? Give us a reason to do that. We'll listen to your discussion because you're yelling loud enough, but what are you doing to warrant 100 grand a year? And if I'm a person who has control over all, and I walked into a lot of PT clinics and saw 4 patients an hour, someone on the new step, the hot pack, the cold pack, the shotgun manual therapy for 8 minutes, a therapist bouncing around, doing useless outcome measures just to get reimbursed, and trying to modify what the patient says to some degree and steer them in a direction so that they're going to get reimbursed, I'm actually going to pay everybody less. I'm going to pay you 45 instead of 60. So if I go into a rehab facility and I see subacute rehab theater where everybody's doing the exercises one after another, seated march, ankle pumps, push into the ball, push out into the band, 100-foot, 50-foot walk with a wheelchair follow, again, I'm going to pay you less, not more, because what you're doing is not very high level. So for all the people out there, new grads, people going into business, people going into physical therapy, occupational therapy, nursing, doesn't matter what profession it is. It could be business even, doesn't have to be medical. The first thing you need to do, if you are going to work on getting your profession more money, then the very first thing you need to address is internal. The first place you need to start is by making yourself better. Yourself. So one of the things I did, my first 3 years out of school, I didn't need to do any continuing education credits because your first 3 years out, you have no continuing education requirement. After that, it's 36 contact hours for every 3 years in New York State at least. I did 74 in my first 3 years. Why? Because I just want to be on here and bragging about it to the people that are listening? No, I don't care about that. I did it to make myself a better therapist. I did that to up my value internally so that when I talk to other people, I can say, this is why I want this. This is why I deserve this. This is why I should command this type of salary, because I've done all this. I've made myself better. I put the time in, not just to get that. A lot of people have that. I mean, just in Western New York alone, there's 130, 140 people that walk across the stage and get that doctorate every single year between 3 schools doing it. So that's not hard to get. But what do you do after that point? What do you do after to make yourself a better commodity? Not just to someone trying to hire you, but to the rest of the community. What can we do to make the profession of physical therapy more valuable to the rest of the community so that they'll pay for it. We have people paying yoga instructors for private sessions $150 an hour. But when they're in pain and someone can help them medically with their shoulder or their back or their neck or whatever, and I say, hey, I'll see you for $100 for your first initial evaluation, or $150 for your first initial evaluation, people are like, whoa, it's a little expensive. But then people will go and pay the yoga instructor $150 for a yoga session when they have no medical training. So, it's all about value. And if we don't start by building the value internally, then we have no way to command a higher salary from either the community or from a business or from an insurance provider or anything else. The next step after making yourself better is making whatever group, whatever tribe you're involved in better and holding them accountable. So if you're a physical therapist and you're working for a company here and this company is consistently pushing productivity over quality, then you need to hold them accountable. You need to call them out on it. Why don't we just do a better job? Why aren't we working on trying to make people better? Why are we putting productivity first? We should be putting quality first. And the company may not listen to that, and they may say, no, this is the way we do things here, and we're having productivity meetings, and you have to get people in, and we're going to keep pressing you until you do. Then it is your responsibility as a physical, occupational therapist, nurse, whoever, to say, I'm not going to work here anymore. I'm not going to support that business. And in fact, when I leave you, I'm going to go and tell people not to go there because this is a productivity-based place, not a quality-based place. I'm going to hold you accountable for devaluing our profession and making our profession worse instead of putting quality first, using your good name and your good business practice or your good business front to make physical therapy a better profession. I'm going to call you out for not doing it. So again, hold yourself accountable first, hold your profession accountable. Once you do that, once you start holding all pieces internally within your group and tribe accountable, then you now have a leg to stand on to go into the community and say, this is what physical therapists do. This is what occupational therapists do. This is what respiratory therapists do. This is what personal trainers, yoga instructors do. This is what we do. We have held ourselves to this high standard so that we can make you better. And that's how you get this type of increase in salary. We all talk about, we should be fighting for 91 grand because instead of just settling for 60, we have to give ourselves a reason and a block to stand on to make this argument. If we want to stand on our soapbox, we have to build a very strong soapbox to stand on. And so far, we haven't done that. That is the overarching theme of this podcast, is that we devalue our profession. So take care of yourself, hold your business practices and the people in your profession accountable, and then we have a leg to stand on. I mean, that's really the biggest thing about all this. It doesn't matter, again, if you're a new grad or if you're someone who's been practicing a while. We have to do a better job. If we don't do the work that we're supposed to be doing at a high level, again, we'll be automated out. I've already talked about that. We'll either be automated out or hired out to cheaper professionals who are willing to do this. But the reality is, we can practice at a very high level. We can do all the things that we need to do. We just have to hold them accountable. And another group I would like to see hold people accountable is the universities. This is one thing, they already kind of draw a line in the sand here. A lot of universities will not send their students to physician-owned physical therapy practices. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with having that line and saying, hey, this is unethical. You're just using physical therapy as an arm to make money. You don't care about the profession at all. I have no problem with that argument. But why aren't the universities holding low-level practitioners accountable as well? We all know who these people are in the community. The universities know. They know what's going on. Why are we sending students to places that see 4 or 5 patients an hour on the outpatient side? Why are we sending our students to places that, rehab facilities that are doing subacute theater, where they have all the HMOs stacked up 4 or 5 at a time and they're just cycling through exercises, the same garbage we're doing all day long? Why are we sending our students there? Why aren't we at a university level reaching our students before they get into the community and say, this is not how we should be doing things. This is how we should be doing things. And I'm not talking about like APTA fantasy land where here's exactly how you do your evaluation, here's exactly how you do this. I'm talking about, what really is best practice and define it. Not the nuts and bolts, like, okay, you have to do McKinsey or you have to do SFMA or you have to do PRI, nothing like that. What I'm talking about is what are the general best practices for our community, and what are the best things that's going to set physical therapy or occupational therapy or nursing up to be the best profession it can be and to make us the most money as possible, if that is in fact our goal. I mean, if we're talking money here, because that's what that LinkedIn post was about, we should be commanding 91 instead of 60, regardless of your location. That doesn't matter to this person. But why don't we give ourselves a starting point? So one thing I would love to see from LinkedIn, I'm kind of going back to what started this whole podcast with LinkedIn, is I would like to see LinkedIn talk more about internal accountability and holding our professions accountable for what we want to do. If we want to make more money, if we want to do better, then what are the things we should be doing internally? I would love to see a lot more posts on LinkedIn talking about people, what can you do to make yourself the best candidate for this job? Don't yell and scream at the employer because they didn't hire you. I mean, LinkedIn has all sorts of these fake stories about hiring managers and what they did. I saw this one story, it was completely made up. It was completely fake, talking about this person showed up 3 hours late for their interview, wasn't dressed appropriately, had stains all over their shirt, but I interviewed them anyway and wanted to find out what their story was, and they turned out to be my best employee. Completely fake, completely made up garbage, complete nonsense. It's just like you see in the physical therapy world. You see people put these blog posts out there about these made up patients that they did some oddball thing with and it completely worked and they were better in half an hour. You know, completely made up case. There's a lot of that going on LinkedIn, and just trying to talk about these real oddball things and business and medical that are, like I said, completely fake. So what we should be doing on LinkedIn is looking at how to make yourself a better individual. So if you're talking about therapists, what can you do as a therapist to make yourself better right at the onset? You know, I had a conversation with a classmate of mine a couple of years ago. She called me up and she was asking me about SFMA level 1. Her company was willing to pay to send her to SFMA level 1. And the one thing I told her was, if you're going to take SFMA level 1 and not change the way you practice, you're not willing to change the way you do things, then don't bother. Don't just go and add the top tier test of SFMA to your evaluation and then do exactly what you were going to do anyway. There's no point in going there. There's no point in going to that seminar if you're not willing to make yourself a better therapist. And there was a long pause after I said that. And the reason being is I don't think she thought of that. And there's nothing, it's not a shot against her. You know, the fact that she made the phone call to me and was inquiring about it is excellent. That's showing initiative to make herself better. That's great. But I don't think people thought about it to that depth. Like, okay, I'm going to take this course not just to learn one cool new exercise, not to learn one cool new way of checking thoracic mobility or whatever. I want to become a better therapist, which sometimes means really changing the way I treat from an operational standpoint at the ground level. And that's tough to do, but it makes you better. It makes you able to command from other people that we should be getting paid more. It makes us able as a community to command that we should be getting more money, we should be getting more reimbursement, we should be higher valued to physicians and the rest of the people in the medical community than we are. But it always starts in here. It always starts with changing yourself and holding yourself accountable first. And that's what I would love to see on LinkedIn. I would love to see a lot more posts talking about what can you do to make yourself better, what can you do to hold your professions accountable, and what can you do to make your profession better so that you can command more money. So be careful when you're on LinkedIn. Be careful listening to all that stuff. A lot of it's made up garbage. A lot of it's fantasy land stuff that's, again, talking about how bad the employers are and how employees should just be getting everything without accountability. Accountability is really the big part. You need to be held accountable for what you do from a practice standpoint. And if you want to command more money, the question of why is going to come up. You need to have a leg to stand on. Doesn't matter what profession you're in. If you're PT like I am, then we probably should be calling out the practices for not doing their job. We probably should be going after the ones who are holding our profession down in terms of a quality standpoint so that we can start commanding more money. All right, this is Dr. Lee Kroll, PT, talking on the podcast about all things PT, fitness related. If you have anything you want me to talk about, hit me in that comment section, give me some ideas. I'll go over stuff. I always find stuff online to talk about anyway, but if there's really something you want to hear about, if there's someone you want me to have on and have a discussion about someone, if you want to have a discussion with me, if you totally disagree with my takes on some things, I would love to have a spirited, reasonable discussion about these things. So get in touch with me. You have the comment section down there. You found us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, doesn't matter. Find me, let's talk, let's figure out some things to talk about in the future. But for right now, this is the Dr. Cole PT and Fitness Podcast signing off, and I will see you next time.